Hi everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the latest episode of my Christopher Nolan series. A few months ago, I got a comment on one of my videos in which I talked about The Dark Knight and how I wasn't a big fan of it. The comment was left by a guy who calls himself Life on an Arc, and he was talking about how The Dark Knight was one of his favorite films ever, and why wouldn't I like that film? I think you should make a video explaining yourself, young man. I'm happy to. The Dark Knight was a film that I was really excited to see when 2008 rolled around. Right up until I saw it, I thought it was going to be, just fantastic because Christopher Nolan was fantastic and Batman Begins. I just loved it. Along with Benjamin Button, it was the movie I was most looking forward to seeing that year, and I was disappointed by both of them. There's a lot of good stuff in The Dark Knight. A lot of the actors are good. I love the opening scene with the bank robbery. I think that's just an impeccably made scene. The score is really cool too. They have the usual themes from the previous film, which again was composed by Hans Zimmer and James Newton Howard. But they've added a special theme for the Joker. I don't know if you noticed or not, but in Terminator 2, the T-1000, the liquid metal Terminator, has his own theme. Whenever he appears, it kind of goes, oh, oh. It's just like one note that just kind of drops in pitch. Well, in The Dark Knight, the Joker's theme kind of goes, it's just one note that's kind of like this buzzing fly or something like that. It's pretty cool. The score is terrific, especially during that opening scene right there. But throughout the movie, it's really exciting. Yeah, all in all, it's a good idea. But the problem that I have with The Dark Knight, one of the principal problems that I have with it is that they wanted to make this movie as more real, I think, than Batman Begins, more set in the real world. Batman Begins was shot in sound stages. It was it's a very designed film, although not as overly designed as, say, the Burton and Schumacher films, but still it has a certain look to it. Whereas they used a lot of real world locations in The Dark Knight. It was shot almost exclusively in Chicago, and they just used the buildings that were there, offices, houses, and especially the streets and what have you. So the problem with that is because the movie's setting seems so much more real than in Batman Begins, the really outlandish stuff is a lot harder to accept, for me anyway. There are a couple instances in which the Joker sets these elaborate traps in motion, like, for example, staging a whole battle sequence in downtown just for the purpose of getting arrested so that he can blast his way out of prison and grab the Japanese accountant, or the, the Chinese accountant, or the scene in which he sets up a whole series of circumstances that lead Bruce Wayne to the apartment during the funeral procession for the police commissioner who got his drink dosed. And it's timed just as the procession is coming by the window of this one apartment, and the window blind is triggered, and the police outside think that it's a possible assassin, so they're shooting at him. The whole thing was set up so that he would be there in that apartment and get shot at by the cops at just the right moment. And it's like, how is it possible? Even as smart as the Joker is, as many people he's got working for him with that $68 million that he stole in the beginning of the movie, to predict exactly when Bruce Wayne will be at that window and get shot at. Obviously he doesn't know it's Bruce Wayne. He figures Batman or whoever, that's following the evidence based on a shattered bullet in a wall that he reads a fingerprint on. The Joker doesn't even know he has the technology to do in the first place. I mean, forget about Jason Bourne and all his impeccable timing involving calling up the Spanish cops and having them arrive just as the American agents are about to descend on them and thus facilitate their escape. Or how about when Tim Robbins in Arlington Road correctly predicts everything that Jeff Bridges will do and fold him into the plan at the climax of Arlington Road. It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, the stuff that Joker is able to anticipate with such precision ahead of time is just ridiculous. And the fact that the movie is supposed to take place, obviously in a fictional city, but still one that is more of a real-world setting than any of the other Batman movies, just makes all those kinds of things harder to accept for me. Plus, you know, on the last big day, you know, the story takes place over the course of weeks or whatever, and on the last big day with all the climaxes, the Joker manages to have all these guys rig up not only a bunch of explosions to a hospital, but then later that night the 2 ferries. You know, I mean, how is it he's able to do all this stuff and trust all these guys who don't even know who the heck he is to setting up all this for him? And it all goes perfectly, well, up until a point. Yeah, it's pretty silly after a little bit. It's pretty silly. I like Heath Ledger a lot in the movie. I think he's a lot of fun, and you know, just entertaining and compelling. I have, like, you know, favorite scenes of his involving his conversation with Harvey Dent in the hospital. That's a really fun scene, you know, and a couple other bits. There's this scene that takes place in Bruce Wayne's apartment, I guess, or his penthouse. He's holding a fundraiser, and the Joker shows up and threatens everyone and wants Harvey Dent. Now, during this scene, Bruce Wayne escapes, and he goes to put on his Batman suit and then come back, right? So here is the Joker, and he's threatening Rachel, and somehow Batman is able to enter the room, which is full of people and brightly lit, some of those people who are the Joker's henchmen, and stand right next to the Joker, and the Joker doesn't notice him. Nobody notices him until he speaks. How is that possible? As sneaky as he is, as good as he is at sneaking up on people and his ninja skills and being really quiet and what have you, all those people, somebody would have pointed out that Batman was there. And what does Christopher Nolan do in order to hide the fact that Batman sneaks in and no one notices him? He just keeps him off camera. He just doesn't point the camera at him. Ridiculous. Then there's this big fight scene. I'm thinking, this is stupid. How could he possibly do that, you know? Again, it's like one of those things where if the less fantastical the setting is, the harder it is to accept these things. There's a few other examples of that which I can't recall. But yeah, my favorite moment with the Joker is probably the one where he makes the videotape of the Batman imposter. That's one scene which is genuinely scary. But on the whole, as entertaining as I find the performance and just the look of the Joker, something is missing there as far as his motivation goes. I know that crazy people don't have to have as strong motivations as everybody else. But, you know, Michael Caine was explained to him about how the fact that he just wants to watch the world burn or whatever. And to me, that's not really a strong motivation, just to incite chaos, just to basically disrupt people's lives as much as possible as a way of demonstrating how their lives can be disrupted, you know. Obviously he's nuts, but it's a little just hard for me to buy into that he would go to all this trouble and take all this effort to hide his own identity just so that he can, you know, show people that life is unfair and that sometimes, you know, bad things happen. I don't know. Let's talk about Harvey Dent. Harvey Dent is a character who, well, there's 2 problems that I have with Harvey Dent. First of all, he's able to do the same kinds of things that the Joker does once half of his face is gone. He's able to run around all over the city and find these people, like the gangster in the back of the limousine or the 2 cops that abducted Rachel, without a bunch of henchmen working for him, without $8 million to throw around and buy information as to when people will be where and what have you. And he does all this with half of his face missing, and no one notices. And the even more outrageous part is that instead of stealing someone's clothes when he leaves the hospital, he finds his suit, his own suit that he was wearing, the one that got half burned in the explosion, along with his face. He puts that on. Where would he find that thing? Would that suit be at the hospital? You know, wouldn't that be tucked away in police evidence somewhere or something like that? How could he get his half-burned suit back? And then walk around like Tommy Lee Jones with 2 different, you know, halves, you know, halves of his suit in 2 different conditions, along with, you know, the side of his face. Ridiculous, just ridiculous. And Aaron Eckhardt, I think, is a good actor in the first part of the movie, but once things start getting really heavy, he starts getting very, very melodramatic, and his line readings get really, you know, just way over the top, you know, talking to Batman about, you can't give in, you can't give in. When he finds the cop in the bar goes, geez, Harvey, I thought you were dead. And he takes a drink and he goes, half. and then wipes his lip, you know, just like in this really, really over-the-top fashion. I mean, he must be really, really angry at this point to be so, you know, over the top. And yeah, very, very poor choices as far as performance goes. I thought he really could have brought it back a little bit, a little less growling, a little bit more seething. I don't know. It just struck me as wrong. It just struck me as improper. Now, of course, Katie Holmes was in Batman Begins, and due to either Christopher Nolan feeling like her rather bizarre relationship with Tom Cruise was going to be a hindrance and take attention away from the film, or Tom Cruise insisting that Katie Holmes, you know, stay at home and get pregnant or whatever and not appear in The Dark Knight, or I can't remember when she had her baby, but it was probably, you know, whatever circumstances led him to recast the role with Maggie Gyllenhaal. And I've already seen Michael's video, and he thought that Maggie Gyllenhaal was not a great choice for Rachel. I like her. I think she's very attractive, actually, and I think she makes for a better prosecutor than Katie Holmes did. But one issue that I have with her being in the part instead of Katie Holmes is that emotional connection that you have with the character who's played by a particular actor is missing. You know, it would have been better to have Katie in the role, but obviously some things are beyond people's control. I wish that she had been back for The Dark Knight. You know, that would have, you know, made the whole series more consistent, to have the same actress playing that part, that character that's so important to Bruce Wayne. Yeah, there's stuff that I do like about this movie. I like the fact that one character, one of the good guy characters, gets killed, apparently, but then it turns out that that was just a ruse in order to trap the Joker, and then another good character gets killed for real. Oh, one other thing I don't like about Aaron Eckhart is that when he gave an interview before the film was released, he gave away, you know, the key character that got killed. He didn't mention that character by name, but he described the character well enough to make it very easy to guess who it was. I'm just like, what are you thinking? How could you say that in an interview before the... Ah, man, you know, I really started to just like Aaron Eckhart. Maybe that colored my perception of this performance, but I was just like sitting there, you know, kind of waiting for that character to die because I knew it was going to happen. Yeah, so what have I covered? I think I've covered most of the reasons why I don't like the film, but, you know, again, it was, oh, and the fight scenes as well. Somebody mentioned, a lot of people have complaints about the photography in the Batman Begins, the way the fight scenes are shot in kind of an erratic fashion, you know, shaky cam, what have you. I figured that they kept the cameras far away and zoomed in, you know, so all you see is like an arm hitting you or just like a shadow, what have you. And I thought that was very appropriate for Batman Begins. I didn't think it was appropriate for the very first fight scene in the movie, in which before Christian Bale becomes Batman, he's just fighting a bunch of guys in, you know, the Chinese prison, and they use the same technique where you can hardly see anything. But it's appropriate for Batman Begins because these henchmen are standing around waiting, and all of a sudden, boom, an arm comes out, boom, and, you know, I mean, if you got into a fight with Batman, that's what it would be like. You'd turn around and all of a sudden you'd have a fist in your face, and the next thing you know, you'd be on the floor. You wouldn't see anything, you know. And so the guys, so covering the fights that way, I think was very appropriate. Whereas in The Dark Knight, they pull the camera back and they show everything, and it doesn't look nearly as good because Christian Bale is wearing a really heavy bat suit, and you can see just, you know, how big and unwieldy it is. And he's fighting these guys, and he isn't able to move as fast as Jet Li, so, you know, it just doesn't look as good. It isn't as convincing. Another problem with the photography, and this is related to the IMAX, they had two major set pieces shot in IMAX entirely. The opening bank robbery and the big battle involving the trucks at night in the center of Gotham City. And they were all shot entirely with IMAX. It's great. But then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that was shot in IMAX just incidentally. Bits of the climax, they would intercut between the regular photography and the IMAX photography. So you'd go back and forth between the two, and it got really distracting for me. Not to mention all the establishing shots that were shot in IMAX. They'd have one shot of the building in downtown Gotham City that's in IMAX, whereas the preceding scene was all shot regular. And then they'd go back to the regular photography after just one shot, after like 6 seconds of IMAX. It just got a little silly after a while. The new movie is going to have a lot more IMAX in it, but I'm still not going to go see the film for my initial viewing in IMAX. I'm going to see it in a regular theater where there aren't those changes in the shape of the image to be distracting. I want to see the film without that distraction, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm a little concerned that since taking the care to shoot these films in IMAX, they wouldn't actually show the whole image on DVD. It's the same with Ghost Protocol. During that scene where he's climbing the tower, you're not seeing the whole image on DVD. They should basically show as much image as they can on a flat screen. It would help a little bit, and I hope that when The Dark Knight Rises comes out on DVD, they do that with those scenes and just open it up and show those scenes in their fullest. Basically, you can on the Dark Knight DVD you can watch the IMAX scenes as a special feature, but those that full image is not incorporated in the film itself, which I think is a mistake. I think it's just wasteful to show all that stuff cropped, masked off, you know. Anyway, so I've rambled for a bit here, but that is my take on The Dark Knight. There's stuff that I like about the movie. I think that it's a good idea for a film, I mean, as far as the story goes and everything like that. But there's just too much about it that I can't accept. That just takes me out of the movie. It makes me go, what? That's ridiculous, you know. Oh, you know, the second time I saw this film, there's that scene where the bat axle, you know, the bat pod, drives towards a wall and then scoots up, you know, into an upright position and flops back down again, except it's got these cannons sticking out in front of the front wheel. Those cannons would be broken off by that. Oh, and check this out. Batman's driving around in this thing, blowing up cars to try and get to the Joker in his truck. There are a couple of kids sitting in a car, pretending to shoot at other cars, you know, and then the cars start blowing up, the Bat bike races by. He destroys so much stuff during that thing. How could he possibly be sure that somebody wasn't sleeping in one of those cars, or that there wasn't a couple making out, or a couple of kids? The fact that he didn't blow up the car with the kids in it is just lucky. And that's really, really reckless, and just really kind of pissed me off that he would destroy all that stuff just to get to the Joker when he knew there had to be, you know, the possibility that there was, you know, innocent bystanders in those vehicles. Just a very poor choice. And there's unfortunately a lot of choices like that on the part of Christopher Nolan. I was expecting, you know, better from him. Hopefully I'll get it from The Dark Knight Rises. I'm hoping that I'll like it a lot better than The Dark Knight. Probably won't like it as much as Batman Begins, though. The thing that I'm most afraid about the new film is that while there will be humor in it, that I know, because I've seen a few clips, that the movie will just take itself way, 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 way too seriously. But hey, you know, anything's possible. I am going to be seeing the film tomorrow. And when I do, I'll make a video about my initial reaction to the film. But I'm also, since I didn't get the tickets for IMAX for the first shows, I'm going to be seeing that in IMAX on Monday. And after that, I'll do a full review, you know, as more complete review. My first video will just be sort of my initial impressions of the film and what I liked and didn't. And then I'll be a little bit more elaborate after I've seen the film a second time. 5 days later, which is a little unusual for me. 4 days later, actually. Yeah, something like that. Thanks for watching. I know this was kind of long. Appreciate it. Appreciate all you guys commenting. And appreciate Michael for doing his videos and everybody else for responding. If you're planning on seeing The Dark Knight Rises, you know, make a video. You know, I'd love to know what you think about it. Or comment, what have you. I know a lot of you guys like The Dark Knight as a film. Think it's one of the greatest movies ever. So I appreciate you tolerating my opinion on the matter. Thanks again, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.